Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to give it just a few minutes before we officially get started with our briefing. We're excited to have you all here. Well, a few minutes, like 1 or 2 minutes. Awesome. While we're giving folks the opportunity to join, we realize we just started the webinar. I want to run through just a couple housekeeping items for those of you that are joining. Thank you for joining today's election official briefing for celebrating National Voter Registration Day 2022. I'm Debbie Lombardi, the Program Director for National Voter Registration Day. I use she, her pronouns, and I'll be your host for today. Before we get started, I'm going to cover some quick housekeeping items. First, this webinar is being recorded. You will receive an email with the recording and slides next week. So look out for those. Second, there will be a live question and answer session at the end of the presentations. Please use the Q&A box to ask our panelists your questions. Lastly, you can share comments on your audio or visual issues that you are experiencing with us via the chat that's being monitored by our staff. Thank you. Now let's begin. Sugulema, next slide. So we're going to bring on Secretary Adams in just a second, but before that, I want to cover a few quick things about National Voter Registration Day. First, thank you to our sponsors for the holiday. They help us provide grants to partners, ship thousands of posters and stickers for free, and build resources and host webinars and more. Next slide. What is National Voter Registration Day? I'm sure many of you have celebrated with us before, which is super exciting, and we're glad to have you here. For those of you that are new, it's a nonpartisan civic holiday to help get Americans registered and #vote ready for elections. It's held on a Tuesday of September every year, with the next one being on September 20th, 2022. So just a few short weeks away. And it's a coordinated day of events to share registration opportunities before state deadlines. Next slide. So why celebrate National Voter Registration Day? As you know, as many as 1 in 4 eligible Americans are not registered to vote or are unsure if they're registered to vote because they may have moved, changed their name, or for other reasons may need to update their registration. We know that Americans miss elections each year due to registration problems or missing deadlines. And we also know that you have unique and trusted relationships in your community, and you can help change this. Next slide. Lastly, we have really exciting and big goals for 2022. We're hoping to help register over 800,000 people to vote on September 20th for a lifetime total of 5.5 million registered voters. We're hoping to engage over 4,000 community partners like you. We want to help voters get #vote ready for the midterms, and we're excited to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of National Voter Registration Day. Next slide. On today's agenda, we're excited to have Secretary Adams here with us to talk to you all a little bit about National Voter Registration Day, and then we'll cover some quick things from our end that can help you get ready for the holiday, including how and why election officials can participate and key messages and ways to engage on social media. Next slide. So with that, I want to turn it over to Secretary Adams. I'll quickly read your bio, Secretary Adams, just to give you a good introduction. Sugulema, you can stop sharing screen if you would like. Michael Adams is a native of Paducah, thank you, is Kentucky's 86th Secretary of State and the 77th person to serve in that role. Michael attended McCracken County Public Schools and was the first in his family to get a bachelor's degree. After graduating from the University of Louisville, Michael attended Harvard Law School on low-income aid. Returning to Kentucky, Michael clerked for Chief U.S. District Judge John Hayburn, worked on Senator Mitch McConnell's 2002 re-election campaign staff, and served as Deputy General Counsel to Governor Ernie Fletcher before moving to Washington to accept an appointment as counsel to the U.S. Deputy Attorney General in the second Bush administration. In 2007, Michael began full-time private practice in election law, first as general counsel to the Republican Governors Association, and later opening a national practice in the field. He has represented several national political committees, numerous national political figures, and statewide campaign efforts in all 50 states. Because of this unique election experience, in 2016, Michael was appointed to the Kentucky State Board of Elections, where he gained critical preparation for serving as the Commonwealth's chief election official. Inaugurated as Secretary of State on January 6, 2020, Michael first pushed his signature legislative issue, Kentucky's first photo ID to vote law, through the General Assembly, then pivoted to saving the primary and general elections from the problems that befell other states during the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2021, Adams presented state legislators with the most ambitious election reform plan since 1891, and the bill passed both chambers with near unanimous support. Michael's work in making it easy to vote and hard to cheat and taking Kentucky from the back of the pack to a national leader in election administration in mere months has earned praise through America and across party lines. Michael is happily married to Christina and is the proud father of Lucia. Michael, thank you, Secretary Adams, thank you for joining us today.
Michael is fine. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you all for joining today. I'm really honored to be here as partner of Secretary of State Steve Simon in Minnesota, one Democrat, one Republican coming together. That's how this should be, and that's how we do it in Kentucky, fortunately. So I'm here to talk about National Voter Registration Day and why it's so important to our country, why it's important to me personally, why it's important to my state. I want to tell you, of course, a bit about NVRD, but also tell you about the challenges that we have in my state and how I think NVRD is going to help us. So National Voter Registration Day has registered more than 5 million voters since they began about a decade ago. Think about that, 5 million. It's an amazing number. It's important to take a day to focus specifically on voter registration. Look, our democracy needs all the help it can get right now. And so I'm really grateful that National Voter Registration Day is on the front lines, helping to encourage participation and offering election officials like me and other civic-minded community leaders, partners, the opportunity to raise awareness of deadlines and share accurate information. I just want to pause and reiterate how important it is that voters receive accurate information about our registration process and about voting. Sadly, there's a lot of falsehoods out there. Some of them perhaps unintentional, simple mistakes. Unfortunately, too often it is intentional. And so I need all the help I can get in responding. There's a certain group out there, and it's bipartisan. They just don't trust government officials. They don't trust one party or the other, or they don't trust the government, but they'll listen to private actors. And so even if the information that we provide is from the government, it helps having outside partners spreading that information and making sure that voters have access to it. So thank you so much for doing that. Another benefit of National Voter Registration Day is it reminds people that we have an election coming up. Obviously, democracy works better when it's engaged and citizens are active. I know certainly you do an excellent job of promoting among our younger citizens. That's the constituency that has, sadly, the lowest turnout. Younger people vote at lower rates than older people. In the 2020 election, we had the lowest voter participation among 18 to 25-year-olds. That's not a new thing. 30 years ago, when I was a teenager, there was Rock the Vote. We don't see that kind of effort anymore, except here. And so I'm really grateful that you all are going to bring younger people onto our rolls and into the polls. I'll tell you a couple of things that we've done in Kentucky. In addition to partnering with NVRD, we've got a partnership we've just begun with the Kentucky YMCA Youth Association. They've been around for a while. They focus on registering young people to vote. We've got a program where we work with them to encourage high schools to register every eligible voter, which is to say they're high school seniors who've turned 18 or are about to turn 18 and under our law can go ahead and register and vote in a primary as long as they're 18 by the November election date. But we've added a little twist on that. We've changed the law here in Kentucky recently at my request so that any registered voter is allowed to be a poll worker. It used to be you had to be a Democrat or a Republican. Well, that left out a sizable portion of our constituents. We're about 10% independent or other. Number one, I need poll workers. And number two, I don't believe in discrimination. So now we're partnering with the YMCA Youth Association, where we ask these young people to register to vote. And we also, while they're at it, we ask them to register to be a poll worker. That's one of the biggest crises I face and will continue to face, is having enough poll workers. So anything that we can do to get me new voters also helps us with getting new poll workers. The last couple of years have been really tough on all of the election official community at the local level, the state level. In Kentucky, and I presume elsewhere, we had a decline in voter registration. I don't mean just stasis, I mean an actual decline. Most of the months I've been in office still, we've had more voters come off the rolls due to maintenance, people pass away or move away, than we've had voters join the rolls. That's a concern. I want to see voter registration increase. We've seen turnout increase, but we need to see registration increase as well. We're beginning to recover. In May, in just a 2-week period, we saw 4,000 new voters added to the rolls. In June, we doubled that to more than 8,000 new voters, and in July, another 6. We've basically had a couple of years with virtually no voter registration drives. COVID just made that unrealistic. Here at the Capitol, we did a drive-through voter registration program where we had socially distanced people, and we gave out little kits. People would take back home a card, a pen, some sanitizer, and register to vote and register others to vote. But both parties have been unfortunately hindered from registration efforts. Civic groups have been hindered in registration efforts. My hope is that those will recover now that increasingly COVID is in the rearview mirror. But we can't wait for that to happen organically. We have to push for it. So as we approach the general election, I want to see these numbers increase. I want to see voters better informed. And so that's why I'm proud to lead the charge for National Voter Registration Day in Kentucky. Aside from serving on the steering committee, my office and my team are working with community partners to make sure they have all the information, and you have all the information you need to make sure that we register Kentuckians to vote. And again, it's not just about registering. That's certainly our namesake, and that's the starting point, but there's so much more to do. We've got to inform voters better, and we've got to get poll workers. Just in my state alone, it takes 15,000 volunteers to run an election. Most of our workers are senior citizens, and increasingly they're aging out. And so we've got to find fresh blood, and it's so important that we find these younger voters and bring them into our process. I'll add that bringing people into the process actually helps us fight misinformation, because people then witness how the elections are run and helps them realize what out there is actually myth. So last point, we've created an online portal to make it easier for people to register, for people to become poll workers, for people to check their voter registration information. All those things are at our website, sos.ky.gov. But again, I can't do this alone. And fortunately, thanks to National Voter Registration Day, I don't have to. And so I look forward to working further with you all. And you know, you've got friends here in Kentucky. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Secretary Adams. We appreciate you joining us today and sharing all of these amazing points. We know you're busy and have a lot of things going on in Kentucky. So if there's any questions that come in for you specifically, we'll share them with you later. Thanks again for joining us and sharing your message.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Great. Sugalema, can you share slides again? Awesome. So that was wonderful to share. We also had Secretary Simon, who was going to be joining us today. And unfortunately, he had something come up rather last minute, but sent a message of sharing that National Voter Registration Day is something he really values. And we're super excited about that. Secretary Simon of Minnesota and Secretary Adams of Kentucky both serve on the steering committee for National Voter Registration Day. So I'm going to talk about, you know, we've kind of heard the like why and how. I'm going to talk about some of the how from our perspective and why that it's important, and then walk you through some things, and then we'll talk about key messaging. Next slide. So first, I want to share that we have amazing election official partners that are a part of the work that we do. We actively work with the Election Assistance Commission, Election Center, NASED, and NAS to make sure that National Voter Registration Day is nonpartisan and taking into account the needs of election officials who are participating in the holiday. Next slide. So we have a few key reasons we think it's great for election officials to participate in the holiday. One that is important is we have a strong nonpartisan record. You know, I mentioned both Secretary Simon and Secretary Adams serve on the steering committee. I mentioned that we have a lot of nonpartisan election official partners that we work with on a regular basis. And that's really, really important to us. And we want to make sure that that makes it a good space for election officials and other nonprofits to participate in the holiday. Next slide. We also think the holiday is a great opportunity to amplify state voter registration policies and deadlines. We know many of you are working all the time to make sure that your state policies and deadlines are made available to the public so that they're really aware of what is going on and have every opportunity they can to register to vote, update their registration, get the information they need. We also know that sometimes it's really hard to cut through the noise, and we think National Voter Registration Day creates a good opportunity for doing that because we have a lot of big media coverage by focusing it all on one day. We always trend, always, I say that now, and hopefully I haven't cursed us for September 20th, but we almost always trend #1 on Twitter with the hashtag National Voter Registration Day, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We have big media stories about the holiday. We have big partners that are sending information out to their employees about how to register to vote. And so this is a great day to kind of share your deadlines and get them more publicity and space as everyone's kind of thinking about voter registration on one specific day. Next slide. So we also recognize that people registering to vote now and registering to vote earlier can hopefully help reduce lines or issues when people go to vote, when they don't realize that they maybe needed to update their address when they moved, or anything else that might have changed. And so we are hoping that National Voter Registration Day is also a big benefit to election officials and possibly reduces work that could happen later on when questions come up about registration or things like that. Next slide. And lastly, we think National Voter Registration Day is a great opportunity to celebrate democracy. We think that it puts a little bit of fun in it. As Secretary Adams mentioned, we know that a lot of young people do engage on the holiday, but we also aim to make sure everyone who needs information to register to vote can get it. And we want to make it celebratory. We're actually giving out $150,000 in event grants this year to help people celebrate their events this year and make sure that they're super successful. So there may already be events happening in your community with partners that are on the ground, or you may be working with people already on the ground to help plan National Voter Registration Day events. I definitely saw some applications that included bouncy houses or puppies that were going to be there so people could like pet puppies and relax while they learned more about registering to vote. And so it's a great opportunity to make this celebratory and bring new people into the process. Next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the ways that we know that election officials can participate and be a huge boost to the holiday on September 20th. Next slide. So #1, we really value all of our community partners that sign up. The original stat, the first few slides, was that we hope to have over 4,000 people sign up as partners this year with us. Right now, we're on track for that. We have about 3,300 people signed up already, which we're super excited about. And you can be one of those community partners with National Voter Registration Day, or you can encourage groups in your area to sign up, and you can support them with their voter registration efforts. Folks that sign up as community partners receive stickers and posters free of cost, and it's a great opportunity to be able to promote the event, join that national conversation that we were talking about, and really bring community members in. So that's one way election officials can participate. Next slide. The second is something that we'll talk a little bit more about when we get to the communications piece, but you can also issue a press release or call to action for others in your community to join in the National Voter Registration Day effort. We know that areas that have election officials involved, as well as people on the ground registering, people in nonprofits registering people to vote, have the most success. Press releases can be really successful, especially if election officials are participating in the holiday, and can really amplify, again, those voter registration deadlines that we want to make sure people are aware of. And so you can issue something to your local news to get people really excited and involved. Next slide. Lastly, you can promote National Voter Registration Day via your social media channels in the days and weeks leading up to September 20th. And on the day itself, disseminating reliable and trusted public information and education on voter registration as part of a national effort. We recognize that you have the most accurate information when it comes to elections happening in your area. And this is a great opportunity for you to share that information so that people have access to it as well. So one, we have tons of social media assets that we're going to get into, but the more that you are amplifying your message and your materials, the more it's getting out there in front of other people and using this holiday to kind of really bring all of that together. So you can get involved by sharing information on social media. And we'll talk through some tips for social media in the next few slides. Next. Awesome. So I just shared some ways you can get involved. If you have other examples of how you've gotten involved in the past, that's fantastic. Please share those with us. We would love to hear them, and we want to make sure that we're catching all of the great things that you're doing. But I'm now going to turn it over to Travis Morin, who is the communication specialist for National Voter Registration Day. Travis is originally from Connecticut, made a political pilgrimage to the first in the nation primary state of New Hampshire in 2009 for college and hasn't left since. After an internship with WMUR TV during the 2012 presidential primary, Travis got a taste for media and went on to do internal communications work for the Southern New Hampshire University between 2013 and 2015. After that, he jumped back into the world of civic engagement as a press and media specialist with Next Gen America and later AARP during the 2016 election cycle. Over the last 2.5 years, Travis has worked as a print journalist for the New Hampshire Union Leader, and during which he covered everything from local town meetings to 2020 presidential primary happenings. Travis, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Debbie. Yeah, nice to meet you guys. As Debbie mentioned, I'm the communications specialist for the holiday. I kind of manage the website and can help write emails and our social media, anything that's kind of written emanating from the holiday. I have a hand in. We're going to talk a little bit about some key messages for the holiday, things to know for folks on the ground celebrating. So let's get started. Next slide, please. So the big celebratory elephant and or donkey in the room is that National Registration Day's 10th trip around the sun is this year, and we want to color as much of what we do with that as possible. It's on social media, we're going to let our hair down and kind of call it what it is, a star-spangled awesome kind of birthday bash. Oh, Angie, I'm sorry, my pronouns are he. I'm using Debbie's Zoom account because that's how we manage our webinars. I know that's confusing, but yeah, my pronouns are he, him, but thank you for asking. In any case, yeah, so so what was I saying? So we're the big birthday bash that all of America's invited to. Obviously, as mentioned, we want to hit a decade total of 5.5 million voters registered. Even if we don't do that, we're making clear that we're sticking to the same kind of bedrock convictions that have made the holiday a success since 2012, and that's closing registration gaps to distort our democracy by meeting, registering, and engaging voters where they are. And of course, embracing the celebration of it all. It's our whole kind of vibe here. We celebrate democracy, so we keep things fun. So we're going to play into the nostalgia of kind of 2012 a bit. We have a new online swag store we've launched this year. We've going to kind of have some live interviews and stuff on the day of with some of our partners, and just kind of keep things lively and really emphasize the celebrate. And when we say celebrate democracy. Next slide, please. So our second key message is life happens, so check your registration. 2020 was a massive year for turnout, for registration. In spite of everything that was going on in the world with the pandemic, everybody kind of rallied, and it was just a huge, huge year for civic engagement. The issue is that with 2021 being in between, life happens. People move, people get married and change their names. Folks turn 18, you come into the process freshly. And this can be a problem for folks who think they are registered, but turns out they might not be able to get to the polls. Just for a couple of data points, 5 million voters are registered to vote for the first time each year. This includes 4 million who turn 18 and about 855,000 that who naturalize. On top of that, 600 voter, what is this? I'm sorry, I'm trying to read my notes here, folks. We also know that as many as 2 million people, 40 million Americans move each year, and whether they're moving to a new state to a different state or within different wards in their own municipality, their addresses change, so they're going to have to update registration. Party affiliation, that can also trigger a need to change registration. Additionally, some states regularly kind of clean up their voter rolls for folks who haven't voted in a little while, and that can also mean that you're not registered to vote. So our kind of goal is to kind of hammer on these and send this message out there as widely as possible, with this being the first national election since those records were shattered in 2020. So, in addition, when we talk to voters and when you're engaging with voters on the ground, we're not saying, oh, are you registered to vote? We're saying kind of instead like, oh, when's the last time you checked your voter registration? Because that's more of a conversation, and that kind of makes people think, oh, I didn't know I have to check it. What does that mean? That sort of thing. One just builds a bigger conversation with the potential voter. So to kind of hammer on this note, we're going to be talking a lot about voter registration tools like NASA's Can I Vote tool, really great way to kind of find out if your registration is up to date. In addition, on our website, we have a voter registration tool that randomizes different registering kind of plugins from vote.org and other partners who have those. So we would encourage you to direct folks to that as well. But yeah, that's kind of our big key message for 2022. Next slide, please. And of course, the kind of wraparound of all this is nonpartisanship. We can't change the fact that things are very partisan right now, and everybody kind of knows that. Instead we're kind of gonna make use of that and to say, in essence, yes, things are partisan out there. Yes, yes, canivote.org. Yes, things are partisan. Yes, things are divisive, but that's all the more reason why we as a community, as of Americans, regardless of party affiliation, need to make voter registration and voting and democracy kind of an institution, perhaps the institution that is there for all of us. So we're going to emphasize the manner by which the need to register to vote and engage in civic life kind of bridges that partisan gap, and lean on the bipartisan makeup of our own leadership and the diversity of the premier and community partners that make up our coalition. As kind of the top of that being our Secretaries of State, Secretaries Steve Simon and Michael Adams, who you just recently met. We'll be kind of putting a lot of messaging about them and how to establish that, yes, in fact, this is a bipartisan institution, no matter what you've maybe heard or what you might suspect. Next slide, please. So just a few kind of quick and dirty tips for social media. I'm sure a lot of you folks in your offices have social media, and this might be refresher stuff you already know, but never hurts to go over it again. So our primary hashtags that we use on Twitter and kind of Facebook, all of our social media, are hashtag National Voter Registration Day and hashtag Vote Ready. On the day of the holiday, or even when it's not the holiday, if you are posting things related to voter registration or to us, if you throw those in, we're going to see them, and we can kind of help. We can retweet you. We can comment on it. We can like it. It just makes it easier for us to spot it and amplify you. Same thing goes for tagging us on Instagram and Twitter. It's at Natl, NATL Voter Reg Day. On Facebook, it's just at National Voter Registration Day, and we'll get the notification you tagged us, and we can help promote whatever it is that you're doing. In general, on social media, images and video are kind of the best way to get noticed. A lot of the platforms have kind of shifted their algorithm to favor images and media and video. So to the extent you can use that, if you're taking pictures out there, if you have kind of any graphic design stuff in-house that you can do to make cool designs, we certainly encourage that. Text is good as well. In fact, sometimes some of the best tweets we put out are just a sentence, like just no more than maybe 10 words. But if you can be brief and you can be punchy and you can be straight to the point, that seems to do pretty well. Next slide, please. Additionally, kind of the algorithms that control our social media lives really like it when you use images that are appropriate for kind of what they envision for their feed. Instagram actually kind of requires you to use images that are their dimensions. If not, you simply can't post a picture. But the other ones are more forgiving, but the algorithm you'll notice it may not go as far, and that's because I think it likes to serve their kind of folks who use it with the best quality image. So Twitter, 1600 by 900, Facebook, 940 by 788. Instagram, it's got a couple options for like a regular kind of landscape picture. It's 1080 by 1080, or if it's a portrait, you can do 1080 by 1350. I know that's a lot of numbers, and that means nothing. It's probably just going in and out. But if you can copy and paste or screen cap this, or we'll send these slides out after the fact. Just good things to keep in mind. In terms of times to post, it varies depending on your time zone, depending on your audience, depending on all sorts of factors. But generally speaking, earlier is better. Between about 9 a.m. and noon tend to be the strongest, and you can also do some cool stuff in the evening. The rule I was once told was think about when people are eating breakfast, eating lunch, or eating dinner. So that's when you're on your phone during those times, but sometimes people are, or that if they're just kind of hanging out, that's when people might see things. So good things to keep in mind. And also kind of lastly, if you can comment on stuff, if you can turn things into a conversation, it just improves your following and improves your reach over time, because the algorithm again kind of knows that you're there for fun, that you're engaging with your audience, and you're not just kind of pumping out spam or advertisements or what have you. So to the extent you can kind of talk with folks who are on your feed, I'd always encourage that. Next slide, please. This might be the last one, I think. Yep. So, and also just the general kind of overview of communications resources that might be good, useful for you, or kind of groups you're working with. Our communication strategy guide is kind of the best overall kind of explainer for the holiday. It's got kind of talking points and expansions upon the key messages that I was talking about here. Data points, just a lot of really good stuff for kind of building and padding a message about the holiday. Additionally, we've got some sample social media graphics, and we'll be adding more that range from kind of very kind of plain and buttoned up like information about like making sure how many folks are registered to vote, to kind of sillier images and like memes and things like that. We encourage people to just use them all and just send them out on the day of, and obviously throw in our hashtags, and we're hoping to flood the zone with democracy content. So we're going to give you as many options as possible. And that also includes pre-written text for social posts, which makes it even easier for you. You can obviously adapt those if you'd like to, but we have them there. And of course, our election official specific resources. So that's the sample press release Debbie was mentioning before, an election official fact sheet that kind of, it's a bit of an explainer about the holiday, but it does so from the point of view of an election official, and just key components that wouldn't be in the communications toolkit, and also a sample kind of government proclamation. And while that may not exactly be in the purview of some of you folks, you may work closely with those in local government or state government who could make those a reality. So we'd encourage you to look at those as well. And I think that's my last slide. Next slide, maybe. Great. Okay. Yeah. So I guess we're going to do question and answer now.
Yeah, actually, Sugalima, can we go to the wrap up and then come back to question and answer? Do you mind going to the next slide? Awesome. So if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A or the chat box so we can see them and answer them for you. In the meantime, I wanted to share ways that you can get involved in National Voter Registration Day. We mentioned our handle, so you can connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. You can tag us in things. We love that. Then we can uplift the work that you're doing. Also on the day of, as Travis mentioned, connect with us using the hashtag National Voter Registration Day. We know it's long, but it looks so good out there on Twitter and on all the social media platforms. So you can also email us if you have questions at info@nationalvoterregistrationday.org. You can learn more on our website. That's where all of our resources are. Or if you want cool swag like this voter registration shirt, you can shop those at our store, which is at the link below that we'll share out with you in a moment. Awesome. So let me, you can stop sharing slides. Travis, you can come back.
Do that.
Travis, were there any other communications resources we had? Maybe a webinar that might be helpful for folks that are thinking about engaging on the social media platforms and like taking it up a notch?
Yeah, we sure do. So we actually last week just had a webinar called Celebrating the Civic Holidays with Social Media. The Civic Holidays being kind of the larger family of National Voter Registration Day, Vote Early Day, National Voter Education Week, and Election Hero Day. And we all banded together to put on this webinar to kind of explain best ways you can use social media to kind of celebrate our individual holidays. And we had guest speakers from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat, who were all kind of giving us the inside scoop on strategies and ways to use their tools that really help amplify kind of democracy messaging. There were things in there that we didn't know about. So it's really useful. It was a great presentation. You can find the slides for that, or you can find the video on our website in the webinar section, and I can drop that here right now. 1 second.
Great, thank you, Travis. We also had a question about what is the last opportunity to sign up for National Voter Registration Day and receive free swag. That is September 6th. So if you're considering and you want swag, sign up before then so we can send you posters and stickers for the holiday. That concludes all the questions that we have. So I think we're going to conclude our webinar a little bit earlier. We recognize that all of you are getting ready for elections and for the midterms, and want to thank you all for the work that you do. So thank you for attending today, and have a great rest of your Thursday. Thanks.